Hello, Paul Brand here with another quick briefing from the ITV newsroom. Today, lenders have avoided potentially having to pay compensation to millions of drivers. It could have cost them billions. It's after the Supreme Court ruled that lenders are not liable for many hidden commission payments in car finance schemes. So what does this mean and how could it affect you? Our Consumer Editor Chris Choib is with me to tell you what you need to know. Right, so Chris, there is a lot to get through here and it's quite complicated. I listened to the Supreme Court judgment coming down this afternoon.
That's very earnest of you, well done.
I'm very diligent
do your homework
when it comes to news stories. But I found it quite hard to follow. So why don't we do the background first of what this was actually about?
Yeah, well, there's quite a lot of background. If you were a newborn when this whole thing started, you'd now be a full-blown adult because it's been going on for 18 years. Okay. So what happened was there were suspicions about a particular type of commission paid by loan companies to car dealers. Now, the technical phrase for those are discretionary commissions. Now, if you don't know how they work, it's fascinating. They sound so anti-consumer. You imagine how they were ever allowed to happen at all, let alone for nearly 2 decades. So what would happen is that a car dealer would get more of a bonus, more commission, if he signed you to a deal with higher interest rates. So in other words, that whole incentive seemed to be working against customers.
Yeah, to overcharge them.
It's been going on for a long, long time. The debate is very nuanced because what the lenders and the car dealers will tell you is, in their defence, they were only doing what the regulatory authorities allowed them to do. They thought it was absolutely fine. It's really interesting stuff because the Financial Conduct Authority back in 2017 started a real thorough investigation. They've tracked cases all the way back to 2007. The Financial Conduct Authority believes that those kind of arrangements were wrong. Now, we know that for sure because they banned them in 2021. So it leaves millions of people, perhaps 31 million, with these kind of finance deals, feeling they've overpaid and they want their money back. They want compensation. So far, so good. You with it so far?
Yeah, I fully understand this. You're doing well. And, and some of the commission was massive, right, as well?
Sometimes it could be almost 50% of the entire credit cost.
Yeah. They were making a lot of money out of these deals.
A lot of dealers were making a lot of money out of it.
Okay, so what happens next?
But then something really weird happened, that things were going through the courts and the Court of Appeal suddenly out of the blue shocked the financial markets, shocked consumer experts by suddenly saying, oh, well, along with those discretionary commissions, a lot of other commissions seem wrong to us as well. And they're probably unlawful. So that meant that suddenly there was this very important court ruling that implied that not only would the lenders be on the hook for billions, but tens and tens of billions. There have been estimates of up to £44 billion. Such a huge figure, it could destabilise the financial markets. So what we had today to bring us back up is the highest court in the land, the Supreme Court, giving finally, after all of these years of uncertainty, giving some clarity.
Yeah.
But
I mean, you say clarity.
Exactly. And that's why we're here doing this podcast.
Because you have got the clarity. I haven't quite got clarity on it yet. So tell me, what did they actually decide today, the Supreme Court?
You're right, it's confusing because it will be reported, I'm absolutely sure, as being a ruling that goes against customers getting compensation. Not true at all.
Oh.
Because what has happened is that all of those complaints about so-called discretionary commission, and remember they're the ones where the dealer got more money as you paid more interest, all of those have just been on hold. What the Supreme Court was focused on was these other commission arrangements. And they got into some real weeds of the law, very technical stuff. For example, it had been held by the Court of Appeal that some of these commissions could be actually regarded as bribery.
Yes.
I know, it sounds like a medieval kind of law, doesn't it? But bribery. And also that any car dealer getting you involved in one of these kind of deals owed you what's known as a fiduciary duty, a special financial duty of care. Now, if you read across from what the Court of Appeal had said, that would have extended this whole scandal to cover much more than the motor industry. It could have been personal loans, it could have been buying things like caravans, high-end furniture, all kinds of things.
It's pretty much anything you can buy on credit now, isn't it?
Absolutely. So a shockwave went out about perhaps what is already a multi-billion-pound scandal becoming even more so. All that's happened today is effectively the Supreme Court has gone, hang on a minute, no. Forget the bribery, forget the fiduciary duty. In terms of those discretionary commissions, wow, yes, still billions of pounds likely to be paid out to millions of customers. So, to an extent, as you were,
right,
forget the distraction of the Supreme Court.
Okay. So those headlines are quite misleading then, because a lot of people, as you say, are reporting it now as consumers essentially lose out in court judgment.
And it's kind of right, because there's a subgroup of consumers who could have found a pathway to compensation if those extended rights that were implemented by the Court of Appeal had continued. But all those others that had the kind of deals where the motor dealer was getting paid extra when he paid more interest, those are still going on.
Right.
And we'll come to when and how payments might start happening in due course. But don't wring your hands. Don't throw in the towel. There's still a lot of hope of compensation for a lot of consumers.
That's really, really interesting because, as we say, it's not necessarily how it's being reported. And I found it fascinating that the Supreme Court handed down this judgment at a particular time on a particular day. Just tell us why that happened as well.
Well, what happens is that the London Stock Exchange opens at 8 and it goes through until 4:30. They had chosen to put out this ruling at 4:30 after the stock exchange closes because they were frightened that it could destabilise the markets. And actually, I think they were quite shrewd here because they did it actually knowing that, in fact, because of the kind of ruling it is, it's not going to destabilise the markets, I don't think, because what they've done is they've lessened the impact on the financial firms. But of course, they had to do it at 4:30, otherwise they'd have given too many clues about the kind of ruling that was coming. If they said we're doing it at 9:30, everybody would have read into that.
Oh, it must be benign,
there's nothing here to shock the horses.
Yeah.
So this whole thing has a macroeconomic angle to it in that Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, had asked to intervene in the Supreme Court hearing because she felt that if it had gone the wrong way, the liabilities for financial companies could be so mega huge that UK PLC would be affected. Investment would be affected.
A mini banking crisis almost with the amount they owe.
Absolutely, and maybe not so many.
So what's the response been to all of this? Because, as you say, it's nuanced and it's complicated, but is there a kind of sense of one side's won and the other side's lost?
A lot is still to be decided. What is likely to happen now is a compensation scheme, a redress scheme, as the officials call it. These are very unusual. This is when there are so many claims with so much money, you don't want the courts to be clogged up by them. You don't particularly want claims firms pushing them through the courts. You don't want them to go to the financial ombudsman. There are so many. Let's find a way of slewing them through and getting the money out. And that is now what is envisaged. Now, background to this is that the Financial Conduct Authority have previously said they would wait 6 weeks after the Supreme Court judgment and then tell us whether they would implement one of these nationwide redress schemes.
Right.
Now, a little twist in this news story.
Another one.
Yes, another. It's exciting stuff, isn't it, in news terms?
There's a novel in this.
So the Financial Conduct Authority have just put out this statement saying that we had previously said we'd set out within 6 weeks whether we would consult on a redress scheme, but we want to provide clarity as quickly as possible. And therefore, they're going to confirm on Monday whether that redress scheme goes ahead.
Right. So the markets could still jitter on Monday after all.
They could jitter on Monday. It's much, much less likely.
Yeah, because it's not so broad now.
It's not so broad, and the discretionary commission liability has largely been baked in. Billions of pounds have already been set aside by lenders, largely Lloyds, but some others as well. And so that is a kind of ongoing factor within the stock exchange, and it's now not going to be tripped up by anything shocking and new.
So are we going to see sort of PPI style adverts now for have you been sold car hire,
where have you been?
Purchase?
Where have you been? Rick Van Winkle, they've been like every ad,
out there,
oh my word, every ad break. Everywhere on the internet, come on, you might be entitled to compensation if you bought a car between 2007 and 2021, if you bought it on credit, join these claims. Now, it's been annoying to see all that happening, knowing that those claims really couldn't go anywhere until this Supreme Court decision. Now they can go somewhere, but not that far, because now everything's on hold to wait for the Financial Conduct Authority on Monday to give us an update.
Yeah.
And for people listening at various points of the week, I should point out that what I'm talking about is Monday the 4th of August.
Right. And there is advice, isn't there, from some consumer experts saying, hold off. If you haven't already contacted one of these companies, just wait, because you might get yourself into a tangle. Totally.
And let me introduce Martin Lewis into the equation, probably the most high-profile expert when it comes to consumer finance. His advice very much is that a lot of people might be tempted to climb on board this train hurtling towards compensation for millions of people. He says it's not a good time to do so. I spoke to him earlier, and this is what he has to say.
Nobody should be doing anything right now. You need to sit on your hands. While you may have a claim, we are potentially going to see the regulator launch a redress scheme that means you do not have to put in a claim to get your money. So if you were to sign up to a claims firm on the back of this news, there is a chance you could get money paid to you, and then the claims firm could ask for 25% of it, even though it's done nothing. People, I'm afraid, I know it's gone on a long time, but they need to be patient.
So really the advice is just hold on, wait until the dust settles on all of this, and we know what people can do.
Yeah, because let me show you kind of behind the curtain of what this redress scheme might look like. It's not been, of course, confirmed yet, but what we know from the kind of internal dialogue and the pre-consultation that officials have done, this is how it might look. So they might say, there's no need to claim. We will ask the loan companies to go through their records and themselves identify who they feel has been missold. Now, a lot of people are going to be very suspicious about that, because they're going to think that that is marking their own homework. They're going to think, well, hang on. So now the companies that got us into this mess are now going to be trusted as part of the solution.
With no incentive to make any great effort. They might we lost a spreadsheet, sorry.
Losing
Not that we're suggesting they do that.
No, but losing a spreadsheet is a good one that we could come back to. But I have to say that they would be controlled by guidelines put out by the Financial Conduct Authority. Okay. So in theory, they would have to assess and pay out claims according to an agreed set of standards. But still, a lot of people are going to be suspicious about that. So I think the next debate that we're about to have is going to be, should you still go to a claims company? Because if you don't go to a claims company, you're kind of trusting the process. And trusting the process means you have to trust the Financial Conduct Authority, which some people feel has let people down because this thing was allowed to go on for so long without regulations stamping it out. And you have to trust the very loan companies that you're battling with. Yeah. So there might still be a margin there where claims companies can still attract new business. But just to reiterate what Martin Lewis was saying there, the best advice, I think, is just to pause.
Yeah.
At this stage.
Another crisis of trust.
Well, it is, isn't it?
Another massive sector where we don't know who to trust anymore. All right, Chris, thank you. That's really, really clear, which is a lot more than I was earlier when I listened to the Supreme Court judgment. Thanks very much for joining me. Right, for further analysis on the ruling, you can head to itv.com/news. And remember, you can subscribe to What You Need to Know on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any podcast app, so you never miss an episode. And you can watch full shows on YouTube too. Until our next quick briefing, thanks for joining us.